Welcome to Multifamily Insights. I'm your host, John Casman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. Listen, if you're enjoying the show, I need your help. I need you to do me a quick favor. Leave us that rating and review. I want to hear what you like about the show, but also what we can do to make you work harder for your investing goals. And if you haven't done so already, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. We got a great one today. We're going to be talking to Midori Verity. Midori Verity is the CEO of Fuel to Fire Accountability Group for Entrepreneurs. Now, she started her first company right after college and it quickly grew. She put systems in place that allowed her to move out of the day-to-day and into an advisory role so she could pursue other business ventures. She's going to talk about how to do that and more in this episode. Let's welcome to the show, Midori Verity.
Thanks for having me, John.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to this.
Absolutely. It's great to have you on. I went over your bio at a very, very high level. Why don't you take 2 minutes and fill in some of those gaps?
Yeah. So right when we graduated college, we were in a recession. So I know we're talking with investors and real estate people. So they'll understand that whole recession thing. And there were no jobs. There were no good jobs. And so we're like, okay, what are we going to do? And we decided to move back to where I'm from and started a business here. And that is when Google AdWords came out shortly after we started our business. And so our business grew really quickly. I was an early adopter of that. Fast forward, the business grew. We had 2 kids. We bought some properties. 2008 rolled around. Things got very, very stressful. And I went into a deep depression. And at that point, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? I'm sick of myself. I hate this business and we don't have a lot of money because it just got wrapped up in real estate. And so at that point, I went looking for solutions. And what I found were, creating systems and getting people in alignment with who you are so that they could fill in the areas that you're not strong at. So I found all these solutions to help me grow quicker and to solve that overwhelm that investors and entrepreneurs go into. And that brought me basically to where I am today with Fuel to Fire.
I love it. Talk to us a little bit more about some of those businesses, right? And some of those challenges and frustrations that you felt, because you mentioned building a business that you just weren't happy with. And I think that's the thing that probably concerns most entrepreneurs, right? It's one thing to be successful. It's another thing to build something and then feel almost stuck, right? If you're stuck in a job, you can quit, right? Worst case scenario, you can quit. You can go find another employer. When you have a business that you've built, it's kind of harder to quit that though. So talk to us more about how you kind of figured out how to navigate it and change that situation.
Yeah, I used to dream of having a job where I got fired. That's what I used to fantasize about. How weird is that? But yeah, so one thing that I learned along the years is to align 3 components. I call it your personal mission statement. It's really powerful. But what it includes is, what are your core values? Number 2, what are your drives or your passions? Is it real estate investing? Is it creating something out of nothing? Is it helping other people? What is it? And then number 3 is, what is your zone of genius? And what I mean by that is, what are you really good at and what do you love to do? So what you do with these 3 components is you figure out what are the highest level items in each of those categories. And then you turn it into a paragraph. And this paragraph is what becomes your barometer for measuring what you're going to do. So if it comes to, you have this opportunity to buy this multifamily property somewhere else in another state, but it means that you're going to have to move there for a while. You look at your barometer, your personal mission statement. Does it align with these 3 components or does it not? And as long as you use this measuring tool consistently, you'll end up in a good place. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And you said those 3 components are your core values, your drives or your passions, and then your zone of genius. I think core values people understand. I think that when we talk about your zone of genius, I'm assuming here, so fill me in if I'm wrong, but we're talking about the thing that you do really well. So for instance, I have a marketing background. I worked in 15 years in marketing. So that's an area where I'm probably better suited than many other people. But then the second thing you talked about was your drives or passions. I think at a high level, people understand what they're passionate about. But when we think about it from a business standpoint, it can sometimes get a little muddled. So as you think about aligning those three things, is there overlap in some of them? Because I mean, I know people who like real estate, and I like real estate, right? Because I like what it can do, but it's not the passion, right? It's not the thing that when I'm dead, I want people to say he was the best real estate investor of all time, right? I want them to talk about other things, family, all those kind of things, right? So when we talk about that driver passion and aligning these three components, help me just get a little clarity in regards to the role the driver passion has. Should it be business related, or is that kind of an overarching theme as far as what your purpose is?
Yeah. This is not a business mission statement. So there's a big difference there, but it absolutely can be used in making big business decisions as well as personal, obviously. So the way that I would think of it is if you're a real estate investor, if you're starting a business, whatever that may be, use your personal mission statement to decide, okay, if I buy this property, is it going to align with where's buying this property? Is it going to take me to where I want to go, which is in alignment with my personal mission statement? So therefore, let me just give you a better example of how this works. My personal mission statement involves, my something like my journey through life involves helping others rise up to their full potential while I have fun along the journey. Fun is one of my core values. I have to have fun. When I'm not having fun, I actually do go into a depression. It's this weird thing, but it's a core value. And so that is what I think of. So when I think of real estate investing, because we do have some real estate investments, I'd be thinking, okay, is this going to help me get to where I want to go? Yes, it's going to give me that financial freedom. It's giving me that income where I don't need to be doing something with it. It's passive income, right? So yes, it does align with it. Make sense?
Absolutely.
Seeing
That
how it
makes
works.
sense. And the thing that's really cool about it is it also allows you to nuance your strategy. Because investing in real estate, it's a broad thing. There are a lot of ways to invest in real estate. But if you decide, you know what, I don't want to be a landlord, but I recognize that investing in real estate can help, well, you can invest passively, right? You can either do rentals that you hire a property manager with. You can invest with the groups like ours that do syndication deals, right? We're buying larger apartment buildings. You can do note investing. But now you're not, stuck in a position where it's like, well, I said I wanted to do real estate, and here I am with all these rentals that I have to manage, or I'm trying to flip properties, and now you're miserable because that part of the business doesn't align with your core values. So I think it gives us a framework of how to go a step further to make sure the work we're doing to achieve our goals and align our core values, we're actually taking the right steps in that direction. So really great to bring that up. Can we go back into your business a little bit? Because, as you were in that situation looking at your business, how did you identify that, you said you weren't happy, and it doesn't sound like you closed the business and walked away, but you've created systems and processes to make it a little bit easier. So one, can you just talk to us about that process of being in the business and identifying that you need to pull yourself out and some of those steps to create the system so that you could have a little bit more flexibility?
Yeah. So I went through what so many entrepreneurs go through. I hear this all the time. I was overwhelmed. I was absolutely burnt out and I hated it. It was not in alignment with my personal mission statement for sure. And so before I even came up with systems or anything else, what I found when I went to a business event where I was really, really at a low point and I was desperately searching for answers. And somehow, miraculously, this gentleman popped into my world at this event, and his name was Doug Bench. And what he talked to me about, I didn't tell him what was going on in my life, but he just started talking to me about something called neuroplasticity. And what that is the fact that our brain, our synapses can continue to change and evolve, and we have a lot of control of that. So what I mean by that is if, let's say, you were absolutely not an athlete growing up. You trip over your own feet and you can't throw a ball to save your life, right? But then as you get older, you decide, I really want to feel better about my health. I do want to start exercising and I want to feel like I am strong and healthy. So even though that was so out of your, maybe you like almost got an F in PE, you're one of those types. So by programming your brain to believe that you can achieve this, and there's really easy steps to do this, then over time you do. You have to take action steps to match what you're saying about yourself. But what happens is all of a sudden you're like, oh, I can go hop on a treadmill. I'm not going to fall off. And I just ran 5 miles and I have some muscles. I can see some muscles in my arms. Right. And then you start seeing yourself as an athlete, as a healthy, strong person. Same thing can happen in business. So let's say, okay, I'll give you a good example. Growing up, I felt like I was just like the social butterfly, but I wasn't necessarily the academic. So when I graduated high school and I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? I need to go do something. I can't just be going out and having fun. I need to make a living and have something to represent me. I decided at that point I wanted to become a very intelligent, and I wanted to be seen as an academic, and I wanted to go to UC Davis, but my grades were nowhere close to getting me into UC Davis. And I had always, that wasn't who I identified with, but I worked my tail off and I took consistent action to get me into Davis and to see myself as an academic. But that took time. And so I rewired without even knowing what I was doing. I was rewiring my brain to see myself that way. And now I can absolutely go toe to toe with anyone in that space. Take me back to high school and there's no way. So I see this all the time. It's really just kind of a powerful, amazing, almost like a magic wand tool to help you create the person that you step into the person that you want to become.
I love that because there's a book that I tell everyone when they ask me about a book that I recommend, and it's Atomic Habits. And they talk a lot about some of those same things. And it's like, we have to have a growth mindset and abundance mindset, and that you actually have the ability to change into the kind of person you want to be. And part of that is asking yourself, well, what would this kind of person do? And are you doing that? And then every day you're either making a deposit to move closer towards being that kind of person, or you're taking a step away. So if you want to be in great shape, you want to be a great athlete, well, what would an athlete do? Well, an athlete's going to eat right. An athlete's going to work out. An athlete's going to, do certain things because they're an athlete. If you're an academic, same thing, right? An academic's going to read, an academic's going to write, an academic's going to better themselves from an intelligence standpoint. They're going to take certain information. They're going to read certain newspapers or certain publications. So it's those kind of things where you are making a deposit. And if you want to be a real estate investor, it's the same thing, or any kind of entrepreneur. Are you doing the things that real estate investors do? And as much as I love, listening to podcasts like mine and other things like that, that's a component of it for sure. That's definitely a component of it because you have to be educated, but you also have to take the necessary actions. If you want to be an athlete, just watching videos, workout videos, and not actually working out won't help you. You actually have to go work out. So in the same way, if you want to be a real estate investor, you're going to have to look at deals. You're going to have to analyze opportunities. You're going to have to make offers. So you have to make sure you are actually taking the steps to be the kind of person you want to be. And I love the fact that you broke that down so succinctly in such a way that we can understand. So you mentioned that you met this guy. He explains neuroplasticity to you. Hopefully I said that right. Neuroplasticity yes. To you. And that kind of changed your view of who you could be and what you could become. I want to get back to now you take that. What's next in your business so you can actually arrange it in a way where you get this flexibility?
Yeah. And then the next thing that comes in, and this for any business, is systems. We all know that. So if you're a real estate investor, better have systems if you want to continue growing your empire, right? And so that's the other thing that I learned. But when I met this gentleman, what happened is as he was talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have control of my future. I stopped blaming other people. I stopped pointing fingers, and I realized I had the control. So at that point, I'm like, okay, I already knew about systems, but I had to have that belief first. I had to get over that mental hurdle. So systems, goals, we'll talk about goals in a minute, but that's what I needed. And so when I came back, what I did was I was able to hire people to take over my job, because before I thought, I have to do everything. No one can do what I can do. This business is going to fail. And what happened is once I hired the right people, I put them through the training programs that I had created, the business grew, and it grew even faster. And I was able to go do what I wanted to do at that point. So that's the power of mindset systems and goals and implementing, taking those action steps, like you mentioned.
I love it. I love it. And now you help other entrepreneurs and other investors, right, take their business to the next level with your fuel to fire accountability group. Talk to us a little bit more about how you launched this. And at what point did you say, you know what, let me help other people get some of these same great advantages that I'm able to see in my own business?
Yeah. So 2019 happened with the pandemic. Remember that?
Mm.
And I have a few different businesses, but the business that was bringing in the most amount of money almost went bankrupt overnight. It's in a big events company. We still service Silicon Valley. And you can imagine what happened when there's a shutdown. All those events got canceled and we were getting big fat refunds. So I thought, okay, this is my first rodeo. As an entrepreneur, you get punched in the gut, you get knocked out at your knees. It happens. And so I decided, okay, what are the opportunities and what do I want to do now? What's totally I want to have control. I want to be in alignment with my personal mission statement. We talked about. And what it came down to is I saw so many entrepreneurs that were struggling. They were scared to death. They were stuck and they didn't know what to do. But I did, I knew the tools to help dig out of that. And so I decided, all right, what can I do that's affordable and incredibly impactful that we can do quickly to help more entrepreneurs, not just one-to-one. I wanted to be able to help a group. So that was the impetus for Fuel the Fire. So it's an accountability group that helps entrepreneurs set up goals and then achieve them. It's very, very choreographed. We have systems and strategies in everything that we do that has been proven. And that's what we launched. And what has happened through these about 19 months now is that we have brought in larger firms. So not just, smaller entrepreneurs that are just trying to figure it out. Because people realize they need accountability. They see the value in that and helping them push through mental ceilings or business ceilings, or they want a place where they can go and be authentic and real and talk about the challenges that are really going on in their business. Because often you can't talk to anyone on your staff about that, right? And so you get feedback from people who are high level, who've been there and done that. And so that's now what we're seeing is that we're getting higher level companies coming to us, wanting us to either go in to their firm and teach our goal mapping and accountability systems, or they're coming in to be part of our groups.
No, I like that a lot. And I think I'm trying to play the other side of this, right? And there's someone who's thinking like, well, I don't really need accountability. I'm an action taker. I can figure things out on my own. Where's the value for that kind of a mindset, for that person who feels like they're willing to take the steps, they're willing to put in the work, so they don't necessarily need that accountability partner? Help us understand like maybe why they should rethink that.
I've worked with so many businesses over the years. And what I have seen is when people surround themselves with other high level people or people who are even at a higher level than them, they excel far more quickly and it's more fun. So the value of an accountability group or the way that we operate it is you're meeting each week. So you're setting big fat goals, because that's what we talk about in Fuel the Fire is these, BHAGs, the big, hairy, audacious goals, right? And so we set those up. And when you're showing up each week, what happens is all of a sudden you start pushing yourself through barriers that maybe you didn't even realize were there. And because you're showing up for these other members that are there and they're giving you pointers and they're helping you think so much bigger than maybe you ever thought was possible. And so that's just one of the values. But let me talk about some of our client experiences too, just to give a better reference as to how this works. So I had a member come in. She's been with us since the very beginning. And when she started with us, she was a university professor, very high level. She has a PhD, incredibly bright. And she wanted to cut back on her hours teaching and build out her business. And I remember her saying to me, Midori, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a professor. And so this is where the neuroplasticity comes in. I'm like, what do you mean you're just a professor? You're so intelligent. You have a PhD. People spend years trying to get one and often fail at it. So you got a few things going on for you. And so what we had to do was work on her mindset, changing those neurons inside her brain to get her to believe, first of all, that she was capable of being a successful entrepreneur, right? And then aligning her PhD, her intelligence, and making it so that that was something that she leveraged. So getting to your zone of genius, right? Leveraging that. Fast forward, the end of last quarter, she came to me and said, Midori, I have exceeded my goals for this year. Her financial goals and her business goals. The following year, she wanted to get into corporations with her. She does energy work. Who would have thought? She does energy work, but she got her first corporate big client and she excelled through her financial goals. And the way that this happened is she had her goal mapping framework written out. So she knew what her action steps needed to be each quarter. She looked at it, she followed it, she didn't overthink it. She stayed focused on it. And what happened is over time, her mindset aligned with what she wanting to be an entrepreneur. And then because she took consistent action and she showed up every single week to her accountability groups, she's excelled. And so that's just one story that we have with accountability.
I love, first of all, the big, hairy, audacious goals, which is great. But I love in that story, you talked about kind of the reframing, right? And going back to the neuroplasticity, just reframing it, because so many people pride themselves on their work. I'm a doctor, I'm an engineer, I'm a lawyer, I'm a, corporate executive, whatever it is. I'm an IT sales professional. Some people identify with that it's difficult to then reframe what they could be as an entrepreneur or a real estate investor or whatever else it is. And it makes it really hard because if you lose that identity, you get let go or whatever the case may happen. Well, now you have a hard time figuring out, well, who are you, right? If you've identified for so long as this title, well, now who are you? So the fact that you can reframe and understand, if you want to be something different, you just have to start acting as if that thing would be. What are you trying to be? Make sure you set your mindset, but also surround yourself with people who can help you get there. And that's just really key. As we're talking about this, I know goal setting is really, really important for you. And you have some tools and templates that can help people set the right goals so they can see some of the success. Talk to us more about that.
Yeah. And I'm going to give you another example too.
Sure.
With real estate investing and business and how this woman tied it in together. But what we use at Field of Fire is something called the Summit Goal Mapping Framework. It is as simple as can be. It's really easy, but incredibly effective. And we took programs that other organizations had created and we put it together and it's doing people are seeing profound results from just simple steps. And so what it includes is at the very top is your BHAG that we just talked about, right? We call it your summit goal. So if you think of a mountain, you have your summit at the very top. That's where you want to go. That's where you get to the top and you look around. You're like, it's just amazing. It was worth the stress and the effort to get here, right? And then underneath that, you have what's called approach goals. So those are your 90-day goals or your quarterly goals. You have to approach the mountaintop, right? The summit. So we break those down into quarters. Underneath your approach goals are your action steps. You need all of these, right? So that's what goes there. And then through our system, we have you come back, mid-quarter, look at it again, see where you're at, what needs to change, what you can double down on. So you're constantly reviewing and measuring as you go through the system. So I want to share the story of one of my clients. Her name's Veronica. She came in. So this ties in neuroplasticity, it ties in goals, it ties in accountability, and it ties in real estate. That's why I want to bring this up. So she came to me. She was an accountant. And she wanted to massively grow. So what she started doing was buying other accountability firms, accounting firms, and bringing them under her umbrella. And so she was growing really quickly. The other thing that she wanted to do was she wanted passive income through real estate. And she was from Jamaica. So when she was in Fuel the Fire, one of her big goals was to go to Jamaica and buy a home that would become an Airbnb. So that's a lot. That's a lot to accomplish for, if anyone is an accountant, often the way that their minds work is they're very structured. They are often they're not big visionaries, and I'm being incredibly stereotypical right now.
Broad strokes.
Broad strokes, yeah. So, but that tends to be who they are. And so when she came in and she started learning our process of, oh my gosh, okay, let me start thinking about what I really want and what's really possible. Can I do this? And by chunking it down into 90-day goals and winning at those, it becomes easier. And then you start taking bigger steps. So end of last year, she had bought her first property in Jamaica. She was revamping it so it could be an Airbnb. And she had purchased, I think at that time, 3 other accounting firms. And now now her big problem is she's having major growing pains. And so she's trying to hire, but that's business, right? That's what you wish for when you're growing your business. So that's one example that ties it all together.
I love it. And I think the key thing too is like, we have to recognize where we're going. And if you understand that, you talked about the summits and the approaching goals, and recognize that you can't do it all in a day, right? It's going to take time to get there, but are you moving in the right direction? Are you taking the right steps? Whether that's building a real estate portfolio or whatever it is you're trying to do, it just takes time. And you have to have like, whether it be, the check-ins or kind of, you call them approachable goals, but you have to have some benchmarks, right? Something where you can show, hey, haven't achieved the goal yet, but I'm making good progress and I can feel good about the progress that you're making. And sometimes you need to break that down into those actionable steps, because if you don't, what can happen is you can either get dissuaded or frustrated that you're not seeing results faster, and you don't really give yourself the credit for the work you're doing. I tell people who are looking to invest in real estate, is like, listen, give yourself credit for the steps along the education. If you're reading blog posts, if you're reading books, if you're listening to podcasts, chart that, because that's progress, right? You're making progress in your education. If you've read 4 books, if you've listened to 25 podcasts, if you've read 30 blog posts, that's more than a guy who didn't do anything. And that's moving you closer to the goal that you actually want to get to. Now, certainly that doesn't make you a real estate investor by just listening to podcasts and reading books, but you are moving in the right direction. So sometimes you just need to recognize that you are doing work, you are making progress, you are taking steps. And it's harder to see that if you're not really paying attention to it. So I really like the fact that you're talking about the goals. What can you measure? What are you tracking? And how do you grow from there? You were talking about the goal setting, and I know you've got this goal mapping kind of tool. So talk to us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, let me hit on something that you just talked about too.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to get into real estate investing, to think that you want to get into real estate investing isn't enough. What do you want it to look like? Right? How many do you want to have rentals? Do you want to be flipping homes? Do you want to have multifamily? What is it that you want? And what's the outcome that you want from owning these properties? Get clear on that. You have to start there, because I see a lot of people, I don't care if it's business, I don't care if it's investing, where they're like, yeah, someday I want to do this, right? Get crystal clear. What the heck is it that you want? Set that as your goal, write it down, and then go back and decide, okay, what needs to happen? So maybe that first quarter, all you're doing is research. You're figuring out what you want to do, what you need. That second quarter is when you start to implement. That's when you start thinking, okay, how much money do I need to put down for this? Where can I get this money? How creative can I get? Do I need a partner? Do I need a hard money loan? Which, we can go into that, but I'm not going to. There's just all these different things. Do I need to get a second job and then put some money away each month? Figure it out. And then what happens is you're making real progress, and you're seeing where you're going, right? So if you haven't gotten into real estate, or if you have and you want to really become something bigger, make it simple. Write it flipping down, and then work backwards. What needs to happen? And then consistently take those action steps, and you'll get there.
Yeah, I love it. Hit us with that goal mapping tool.
Yeah. So it's called the Summit Goal Mapping Framework. And if anyone would like access to the training and the template, it's all right there. All you have to do is just go to fueltofire.co/goals, and it's there for anyone who wants it.
And I think it's just important, like you said, to write them down as well, and having a framework or a tool, template that can help you with this, because the goals in your head are great, but what happens is we have a lots of thoughts, right? We get excited about things, and you forget the goals. I remember doing an interview, I think about a year or two ago, and there's a stat, I've got to look it up, but the stat was roughly that 80% of the people who don't accomplish their goals don't accomplish them because they forget. They forget their goals. And I was like, man, that's wild. But yes, you want to lose weight. Well, guess what? It's not that you forgot that you wanted to lose weight, but it just stopped being a priority. So when it came down to it and you were hungry and you decided to get that Big Mac from McDonald's, you just got it because you forgot that, hey, losing weight is a number one goal of mine, which means I have to eat healthy, which means I have to make healthy decisions. So you don't follow through with it because you lose sight of that being a primary goal. So making sure you write it down is key. And that's why a tool like the one you have is so important. Again, you can get that at fueltofire.co/goals. So make sure you download that, check it out. And as you're getting ready to crush it in 2023, it is a great opportunity to start wrapping your head around the goals that you have to set yourself up for success. And if somebody wants to, learn more about your group and be a part of that accountability group, what's the best way to find that information?
They can just go to the website, fueltofire.co, and that's where everything is. There's a place if you want to chat with us right there, you can. We try to make it as simple as possible because I believe in simplicity. But yeah, that's the best place to go.
Give me a failure or an apparent failure that sets you up for later success.
I would say the pandemic, when everything kind of fell apart, right? And so that set me up with Fuel the Fire. And I've never had a business that's more in alignment with what matters to me the most. And so, yes.
Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
The simplest one that I use today is Canva. Canva is fantastic for creating anything.
All right, give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
Gay Hendricks wrote a book called The Big Leap. Fantastic book about everything that we're talking about. If you want to stretch yourself and get to new heights, go check out that book.
What's a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals?
I meditate every single morning.
There you go. All right. And what's your number one insight for achieving big goals?
Stay focused. Write it out. Use a template. Use a Summit Goal Mapping Framework. That's what it is.
I love it. I love it. Well, listen, let's lighten the mood. I know you're up there in Northern California, so lots of great food options. But which is your favorite place to grab a bite to eat?
Oh, we have up here in Northern California, we have some restaurants that are owned by the Stark family, and they're all kind of that tapas style food where it's the small bites. And I love that. So I can try a bunch of different things. But I would probably say Willie's Seafood is my favorite of the series. Right.
Willie's Seafood. We got to check that one out. Listen, lots of great information. I appreciate you sharing a little bit about your journey going from, being an entrepreneur, focusing yourself to be an academic and getting into good schools and getting to the point where you can grow these businesses, but also realizing that the business didn't have to monopolize your life. How did you create systems, processes, scale, but then now creating this framework and this environment, this accountability group for other entrepreneurs as well. Again, if you want to check out that goal setting summit mapping tool, it is fueltofire.co/goals. I want to thank you again for coming on the show, Midori. It's great talking to you, and I hope you have a great day.
Thanks for having me.